just give me 1 second. Yes. All right. So welcome and really congratulations. I'm so happy. Q50 V42. That's amazing. How does it feel?
Pretty good. Actually, I still can't believe I scored that.
Okay.
That the amount of time I had to prepare and everything, it really feels like a dream come true.
Good. Very nice. So what were you aiming for?
I didn't have a set. What I knew was that all these major programs, they have their medians at 7:30. So when the exam hall, that was one thing which I had in mind, that if I scored 7:30, that would be probably a score I would want to accept, something over a 7:30. But generally, what I was aiming for was 70 plus, and it's pretty. I was pretty happy to see I was able to achieve it in one attempt.
Good. Very nice. So what was your starting score?
Starting score as in?
So when you so before you started your preparation, did you take a mock test? Yeah.
Yeah. So I took my first in between of my my second year finals.
Okay, that's a very brave thing to do.
Yeah, I knew that paper and I was just bored, so I took a paper and I did not know again anything about the test.
Ashray, 1 minute. I think when you are speaking, your voice is getting cut in the middle somewhere. So I think when you're speaking, you're moving a lot. So I think so that's the reason why I think that the mic is not picking up. I think so. I'm not sure. So do you have a headset or something that might or?
Yeah, I'll just let me try this one out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, during my finals, my second year final, and that one really, I didn't know anything about GMAT. It was literally within 2 hours of me getting to know what the GMAT is.
Okay, I should really say one thing. You were bored during your final exams, and because of that boredom, you took a mock test. Oh my goodness! I think that's the first I've ever heard. So
yeah, I mean, so yeah, I was just interested. I was intrigued because the general concept is. So I was the editor of my school magazine, so I thought I was pretty good at the part, and at least in school, my quant record has been pretty good.
Oh yeah, you got 100% in your 12th grade, right?
Yeah,
that's amazing. Yeah.
So I thought I'd be able to probably ace it. That was a little the expectation, When I exam, it was a 560. So obviously that was a bit of a shock to see, I wasn't really expecting that I'd hit a top score, but I was expecting I'd be able to perform
650, right? I mean 600,
exactly.
650, yeah. So what was your split there?
I really don't remember it because I remember the 560 and I remember just closing the laptop and getting disheartened.
So how was the exam that you took after taking that mock?
I didn't take an exam. Then this was my first time taking
no. So what I meant was that you actually took your mock test during your exams, right?
That paper, I aced that. So
you aced that. Okay, so it didn't impact you. That's good, right? Yeah. Then what happened?
So I think 1st of June was when I thought I wanted to give a good try for the GMAT.
No, so actually, I think before we changed your mic, you were talking about how you got to know about GMAT. What was that? Yes, the editor of your magazine, yeah.
Right. So I was the editor of my school magazine, and
Yeah, okay. So you were saying that you were good at verbal, you were good in quant, so you thought, okay. So how did you know about the GMAT? I mean, you're still in your 3rd year, right? I mean, so you're in your 3rd year right now, right? Going into 3rd. Yeah. So why GMAT now? I mean, it's just...
So the idea was, the progression was something like this. I was generally bored, so I opened Harvard ka website. So I was going through their website, I saw the 2+2 program. And that's from where I got, I thought, okay, these guys have mentioned the GMAT only. And so the first question that I really asked myself was, why have they mentioned the GMAT when generally when people are talking about the GMAT, they use the term GRE with it. So I wanted to understand what the distinction between the two terms essentially was. And that's when I Googled it and I read about the exams and stuff.
Okay, now I understand the whole progression. Thank you for that. All right, so then so 1st June you got serious and then?
Yeah, so I bought the OG. And I didn't buy any practice material per se.
Mm-hmm.
I was generally for 1 month. I was interning. I currently am interning with Ernst and Young, so EY.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Whenever I had time, I would simply just take out the OG, solve a few
Mm-hmm.
questions
Mm-hmm.
on the line software which they give. So I solving questions generally, and the general trend was something like I would do fine in quant. Verbal was a mixed bag. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Sentence correction was especially bad.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, it was, I think I got 4 questions right out of 14. That bad. And that was really a shocker for me because again I had edited my school magazine, and I really did write myself over my overall grammar, holdover grammar. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and that was something which really bothered me.
Mm-hmm.
Then on 1st of July, so basically for 1 month it was generally about seeing the OG and practicing questions.
So how was CR and RC?
Okay. RC was good. In the sense I would get 80-85% questions right.
Mm-hmm.
For CR, it was a mixed bag.
Mm-hmm.
I would get 30 questions right on one day, and the
Mm-hmm.
next day I would get 10 questions right out of 50. It was a mixed bag. So the problem was I didn't have a structured approach to going about the question.
Okay.
Essentially, so I could think about things. I didn't have problems understanding the concept and the argument which was being presented, and then working through the options. But I didn't have a structured thought process, and that was really hindering it, because when you're solving say 150 questions, by that time your brain is obviously a little tired.
Mm-hmm.
So that subconscious mind isn't really working and pumping out the answers, and that was when I was starting to get my questions wrong.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Yeah. So let's fast forward to 1st July. What happened then?
Um, I simply booked my attempt. So that's what happened.
You what? You retook your GMAT
No,
mock.
I booked my attempt. I booked my first attempt.
Oh, you
On,
booked your. Okay. Okay. All right. Uh-huh.
yeah. I booked my attempt for 15th, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And within half an hour of doing that, I realized there is no way I am going to, score very well, given my sentence correction score.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so one thing I missed before that. So the 1st of July in the morning, I gave one of the first official GMAT papers.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The GMAT prep ones, and I scored decent. I scored a 740, which was
Mm-hmm.
good. But again, the problem was quant. It was a Q50 or 51.
Mm-hmm.
Sentence correction was very bad. CR was good. RC was good. Or both of them were decent, but sentence correction was very bad.
Mm-hmm.
That was the general trend for the whole month of June, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And when I booked the attempt, within half an hour, 40 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of realized that there's no way I'm, just by practicing questions, I'm going to start getting the SC right. I need to go over the rules. So that is when I took the e-GMAT course also. I think within 45 minutes of my exam date, I purchased the course also.
Okay.
And I started burning through it. So I burned through sentence correction in 3 to 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
And that really saw a jump in my answers. I was able to get like 90% questions right.
Mm-hmm.
And in a set of 14 questions, I was getting like one question wrong.
Okay.
So that was the turning point, I would say. Within 3 days, I saw the jump in accuracy for sentence correction. And so that is when I got more serious about my thing also, when I saw that I'm able to perform very well in my sentence correction, which was essentially my problem. Then I started strengthening my other points. So the idea was, till now good meant an 80% accuracy, because I was comparing it to a 4 or 14, right? But that does not bring you to a 760. That keeps you at a 740 when you're lucky. Probably below that. So that is when I started to think, now I should start working on these other aspects and these other areas. And first thing I did was the RC course. I tried to reading strategies, and they really helped, because, well, frank, I didn't use these strategies very rapidly during my preparation, but I used them in every single one of the RCs on test day. And I asked for ESR also, and I had 100% questions right in RC, so surely it worked.
Okay, that's really good. Okay.
Yeah, so that's for that. And for CR, essentially what pre-thinking, I went through the modules, and what I understood from that was how important it was to understand the argument, break the argument down into its constituents and then move to the options, rather than just reading the argument and moving to the options.
Mm-hmm.
And that was how I went about, that helped me improve my CR score also, because I would read the question, take 2 seconds to understand what could be 2 to 3 possible causes for this, and then I would go to the options. And then my accuracy was pretty good. So it was at 90-95%.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what was your accuracy in SC according to your ESR?
I think it was above. So of the 4 sets that they give, the first one had 100%, the third one had 90%, fourth one had 90%. Whatever I had lost was in the second
Second
set.
one. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Wow, that's amazing. Good. All right. So I think let's talk about quant as well, and then I'll come back to verbal, because yours is a very interesting story. So I'm just holding on to my questions right now. Yeah. So tell me about quant.
So Quant is, well, it gets more interesting here
Oh,
actually.
really? Okay.
Yes. So my first three mocks, my Quant scores were 51, 50, and 50.
Mm-hmm.
And then they dropped to a 48.
When?
Within 1 day. Because the thing was, I was generally confident about my Quant. So I had practiced, I'd say, about 100 questions in 1 month, the whole month of June, and
Mm-hmm.
about 30 questions in the first 10 days of July on my
Mm-hmm.
Quant, because my whole focus was on my problem area, which was verbal.
Mm-hmm.
Because I remember I have seen my verbal grow from a V27 to a V42 on my main, right? So, and it was around a 43, 44. Once it even touched a 45 on my mocks.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the problem area I was working towards. My Quant was generally stable at 50, 51
Mm-hmm.
after that first shock over 560. So I didn't really focus too much on it. But then it came crashing down and it came to 48.
When
And
was
that
this? What date was this?
this was, I think, 10th of
10th July.
July.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
5 days before my exam, I realized that, okay, my Quant score is dropping. It's dropping bad.
Okay. Okay.
So the idea was, I knew I would be able to solve the questions. Again, I
Mm-hmm.
have a strong, Quant background.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem was I wasn't probably looking at the questions with the correct technique.
Mindset. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because which is required to answer the questions. And that is why I was making the errors. For data sufficiency, clearly my method was wrong. I was taking both the statements together, and then I was trying to discount one statement over the other. So that was
Oh,
clearly something which I was doing wrong, rather than
you were
taking
answering
one
a
of the
completely different
statements first and
question.
then
You were
uh,
answering a completely different question for
exactly,
me. Yeah. All right.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So and that had probably worked. So what was happening was, probably since my problem solving scores were high, it was getting hidden because of that. But when the very, very tough problem solving questions started coming in, so these were for me, the turning point essentially was, I think, the Eunice digit questions. I did not get a single one of them right. I did not know the technique to answer them, because there's a very specific concept you need to understand about
Okay, I
segmentation.
have one question here. You mentioned that you took what, 4 mocks, right? 51, 50, 51, and then 48. Now, are all these mocks GMAT prep mocks, or are these
Yeah.
different?
No,
All were
these are,
GMAT.
yeah, all GMAT prep mocks.
Okay, all right.
So I gave the mocks I gave essentially till, I think, 12th. So basically, my paper got rescheduled from 15th to 20th. There was some internal problem,
Okay.
and they had to reschedule my paper. So I think it was on 15th only that I started taking the 15th or 16th that I started taking the GMAT club mocks.
Okay,
Um,
got it. Got it.
Before that, I was only taking the official mocks, and I held on to my last 2 mocks for the last 2 days before my prep,
Makes
because
sense.
I wanted to be sure about what I want to do, and be done with my concepts, and then take those 2 mocks, so as to be confident and
Mm-hmm.
be get a very realistic projection of what my score could be like.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
Okay.
that was what I was predicting and going for.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I took a lot of the GMAT club mocks, and
Okay. Yeah. So you're talking about units digit that you didn't get
yeah.
even a single one. So what happened then? What did you do?
So the idea was, so that is when I took the e-GMAT Quant course,
Mm-hmm.
and that one I ran through. So I was, so again, so this is happening on 10th, and that time I didn't know that my paper would get rescheduled. So it was on 15th, and it was a panic situation for me, because I couldn't let go of my work. I still had to practice,
Mm-hmm.
and my Quant was falling. So I took one day and I burned through all the concept files. for the e-GMAT Quant course. That is what I did. I learned the cyclicity concept and the few other areas where I needed the concepts needed plugging in. I covered those first, and then I took to the Quant Scholaranium and started practicing.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I took the ability tests, I found okay, there are still some problem areas for me, and then I revisited those concept files
Mm-hmm.
because the idea was I had already done the OG and the quantum
Mm-hmm.
file, so it wouldn't make too much sense 2 days before or 3 days before the paper to redo that again.
Mm-hmm.
So that is why I wanted to focus on the concepts. And yeah, so that's what I did. Then 12th, I got the mail saying that there's some problem with the center and they have to reschedule. So I got it rescheduled to a 20th. Uh,
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Nearest date I think they had available. Double
Mm-hmm.
check. Post that, the idea was I took 2 days. I focused more on my quant. I did practice a lot of questions. I gave a lot of the GMAT club cats to understand how I'm going, and I identified a few problem areas. So I thought I was bad at geometry, but that was not the case. I was getting inequalities questions wrong. So because I thought I knew the method how to do it, and I probably do, but the thing is, when you're answering it for a CBSE exam in a 6 mark or an 8 mark format, it's different from answering it for GMAT in say 1 minute or 1.5 minutes.
So how did you figure out that inequalities was your problem area?
That was simply Scholaranium, because when I gave the thing, the stats came on the side, and when I saw that my algebra and inequalities portion is at I think 60% accuracy and geometry is at 85, that meant there was some problem in what I was thinking. That
Mm-hmm.
meant I was getting the geometry questions right, and I was getting the toughest ones wrong. So
Mm-hmm.
a few things I had to revisit, but that was generally good enough. So then I switched my focus to the algebra portions. And one fundamental error I was making was when I had something on the reciprocal sides of an inequality, I was cross multiplying.
Oh my God.
When,
Okay.
so that was the error I was making in 5 questions straight.
Oh wow.
I that error in 5 questions straight. So when I understood that no, I don't have to do this. This is wrong, and then I understood why it's wrong. Once I
How did you understand that? Why?
So YouTube was I took to YouTube at that time because that is something I do whenever I want to understand a concept. I'll go to 3 sources to understand it from different points of view, and then I create my own concept. So essentially, then I take a scratch pad and make my notes. Trying to maintain my notes, and then I was able to understand okay, what is logically wrong with what I'm doing. So once I understand that, I won't make that error again, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I did. I revisited the concept file, then I went to YouTube. I used these 2 materials, and then I searched on Google. So these 3 things, then I made brought it down to my notes, and then I was able to understand. Okay, I'm doing it wrong, and it's logically wrong. It's not a mathematical problem; it's a logic problem. So then I solved that, and that really obviously I got 2-3 questions right, which I was previously getting wrong. So
Mm-hmm.
that was important. I would say.
All right. So yeah, I mean, what you're saying is very important. I mean, you need to first figure out the problem areas, right? And you were thinking the geometry is your problem, but really inequalities was your problem, and you went about it very methodically, I would say. So yeah. All right. So then what happened?
So yeah, by this time I was already approaching my exam date. So obviously tension was on the peak, and so by this time what I had done was I had created these, I'd say, 20-page notes for myself, handwritten notes, which were basically all the sentence correction rules, because that was my first problem area. Then my quants and the formulae which I want to use. So I would go through them and I would take question sets. And how I went about it in Scholaranium was I would take 3 small question sets, which would be 5 questions each. And then I would one big question set, which would be the complete 36 in case of verbal and the complete 31 in case of quant. To understand how many questions I was generally getting wrong if I were probably giving an adaptive test, or which was varying by difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
So there I was again able to identify if there was any conceptual error. So by this time I understood I had one problem, which was time management. So now the concepts were generally okay. I was able to hit 28, 29, 30 questions right, but the time was becoming the problem. So the chart went something like this. The first 27 questions would all be right. The next 3 questions would be wrong. And the reason would be because by the time I reached those questions, I had 1 minute per question left. So I was reading the question. By the time I read it, I didn't have time. I would click an answer and just go ahead. So that was the problem. I could solve that. So then I started again. So I went back. I took smaller question sets, practice those to again just build up the flow per se. And then I came back to the cats, the GMAT club cats, and making 31 question sets on Scholaranium. And my accuracy, and the accuracy was good, and my time management improved drastically.
Okay, that's interesting. Very interesting. So, all right. So, anything else you want to add before I start asking questions?
No, I think that's pretty much the story. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So, from what I see, you have gone about it very, very methodically. You did the preparation on your own, and then you figured out, okay, verbal is your problem area. You did SC because you recognized SC was the issue. Now, tell me what helped in SC. I mean, you were pretty strong in grammar, so I don't think you really needed to know that subject verb must exist and all that stuff, right? So, what really clicked in SC?
First thing was understanding that. So the thing is, when we study editing omission per se in CBSE, right? The general norm is that there's going to be one error. So you look for one error, you correct that error, and you move ahead. That's not how it works in GMAT. There can be 5 errors in the question, and there can be a meaning error at the same time. So you want to be able to understand how things work, and that is when I started breaking the question down into parts and looking at each part independently. And by doing that, I was able to understand, okay, so the subject and verb is right probably, but the pronoun isn't matching. Or okay, I'm looking at an off prepositional phrase when I shouldn't be looking at it, and that is why I'm getting this part of the question wrong. So once I was able to do that, most of the problems kind of streamlined themselves.
Okay.
Parallelism generally, so that's a very favorite topic of the GMAT, I think. But that I was generally okay with. Once I was able to identify the markers, I was able to identify, okay, we're looking at probably 2 lists, nested lists, one under the other and stuff. But going around it, so if there's a verb problem around it, or is there a pronoun which is not matching, or it's existing but I don't have an antecedent, those things, so that is what took time to get used to.
Okay. So if you finished through the SC course in 3 days, and you were focusing on how, so essentially you were trying to figure out, you utilized the strategic pausing method to break down the sentence structure, and then you broke it down to each and every error. So error analysis, that you need to first look at a subject, verb, pronoun, and whatnot. But how did the meaning play into all of this?
So the meaning, so how it goes is when you're reading a question, sometimes the first line. So if this, I think this is especially the case when the whole sentence is underlined, you get an incomplete meaning. If there are errors in it, you get an incomplete meaning from that. And again, so because during the paper or during the mock, you have a very limited amount of time you can spend on one particular question. So you cannot lay down 5 possible meanings and then work through those. So that is when you have to go to the other options and try to understand what sort of common connect you can find to identify the meaning of the question. Because if you logically predict the meaning wrong, you anyways get it wrong. If the question is trying to say something and you're looking for an answer which is saying completely the opposite, you've anyways lost the question. Right? So that's very important, and that is, I think, something that took some time for me, especially in those questions which had everything underlined, to understand if there's a meaning error. So what I did was I got an incomplete idea of the meaning. I would try, if there was some very obvious logical flaw in it, I would identify it. If there was something more subtle, I would have to go through the options to identify, okay, this is what the author is trying to tell me. Now I know. And then I would go through the same process, break down the question and see if there's where the error is coming.
Okay. All right. Okay. And then you had utilized Scholaranium as well for SC, right? So in Scholaranium, when you took the test, what came out as the problem areas for you in SC?
Modifiers. That was,
modifiers. Okay.
yeah, that stuck out. Because,
so how did you then prepare for modifiers? You went back to modifiers files in the course?
Yeah, I went back to them. I went back to my notes, which I prepared the first time round, and found what gaps I had missed out. Some small things which were probably there in the application file, or some things which were there in the concept file which I had missed out because I probably got it right during the pre-assessment quiz. So I got a little cocky and I didn't
Mm.
prepare for it. So those things I again laid down, and then the conceptual gap I was able to fill that up essentially.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Now, CR and RC were actually more interesting for me, because SC, from what it seems like, I think because you are a very avid, I mean, you are into editing processes, right? So I believe that for you meaning comes intuitively. I feel, I think SC, why you were facing problems was not because you were not able to understand the meaning of the sentence, but because you weren't familiar with the format of the question per se. As you said, that you were really used to finding just one error. So I think for you, the error and analysis step as the second step of the process really was the key, and which is a little unusual. I mean, I haven't seen, typically people have problems because they know the rules, but they are not able to apply the rules because they haven't understood the meaning of the sentence. But from talking to you, and given your background, it seems that meaning was never an issue. You never really had to think, oh, what does this sentence mean? You never really approached SC from the standpoint of, okay, I need to find, so I'm not sure as to what the meaning sentence means, but this part is underlined, so let me just find similarities and do that. So you never really did that. So SC, even though I thought, because you went through the SC course in quite a bit of detail, I thought maybe SC was something that was a turning point for you. But I think it was really from the format of it, the way you mentioned regarding regarding DS and Quant. But I think for you, CR and RC, that was, I mean, you were pretty good in them. But still, what happened was that you didn't have a very solid approach. The pre-thinking approach for CR, for example, that once you imbibe that, you were able to get, I mean, as you mentioned, 95% accuracy in CR, right? 95% ability in CR. So so you went through the pre-thinking files, or did you go through the entire course in
So
CR?
I went through the entire course because I
Okay.
so there was no logical gap apart from
Okay.
it as well. And so the two files which were really important for me were obviously the thinking files and the files where you broke the foundation files where you broke down the constituents of the questions, because that is very important for whole phase type questions in particular. So that was very important for me. Once I was able to do them, and I could apply the approach essentially, then it became very easy for me. I would take on an average of, I think, 50 seconds to a minute to get the question right.
That's amazing.
So my GMAT, I think I finished my whole paper in 2 hours 20 minutes or something. I was out of the hall pretty fast.
Wow. Okay. All right. That's good. Now, RC is another surprising thing for me, because again, you are an avid reader. I don't. What I want to understand from you is that why was RC a problem area? I mean, when I say problem area, you were good at it, but what more did you learn from the course that you were not doing intuitively yourself?
The reading strategies. That was really important, I would say,
Which
because
reading strategy?
Um, so the notes one was very important. The first one when you're talking about taking notes, because what was happening for me was I was getting a dominant idea, but I wasn't getting the main idea. So I would get that question wrong. I would get an idea which is discussed in a lot of detail, but probably it's related to something else which
Mm,
the author is trying to talk about, and I would completely miss the point in that sense. So
mm,
that was very important, getting that right. So I think two questions which are present in most of the RCs are: one is the main idea of the passage, and second thing is what is the author most likely to agree with,
mm,
or what is the logical inference. So those, to know that, if the main, it actually does come down to the main idea. If you're able to grasp that, you will be able to identify what the author would agree with or what
mhm,
it's trying to say. So for doing that, you have to be able to understand the entirety of the passage and not one idea which the author is focusing on. Maybe he's talking about a very overarching scheme of things and then going for a specific idea. So you have to
mhm,
understand that. So that was really important for me. And once I was writing 2 lines about the first paragraph, 2 lines about the second one, something like that, then I could understand, okay, he's not only talking about this, he's talking about this also. So when
mm,
I'm looking for a main idea, I'm looking for something which encompasses this also and not only this.
mm.
That is
Okay. Okay, that makes sense now. Okay, all right. Now, Scholaranium. So, uh, how would you explain the role of Scholaranium in your preparation? I know you've talked about it, but now that you look back, you were already at a certain level. You were already at 80% level in all in SCCRRC. Quant, you were already doing good. So yeah, so how would you explain the role of Scholaranium?
It was so once the first thing that I identified, the error being sentence correction. That was because it was very evident to me. Beyond that, there was a lot of subtle things that I was getting wrong, which I probably would not have identified had I not had the stats with me. That okay, I think I know this, but clearly this is not working. I'm clearly getting these questions wrong. So that was why the scholar rating was very important for me, because I was able to look at the complete breakup by type of question, what I'm getting wrong, to identify, okay, the toughest questions of this type I'm getting wrong. So that means there's some trick that I'm missing, or there's some strategy that I'm missing. Or for this type of question, I'm getting even the easy questions wrong. That means there's some major conceptual gap, which I have over here, which I probably have not looked into yet. So I should look. So that
Okay.
was important for me.
Okay. Why this is very interesting is because Scholaranium is designed to do that. You know, when we talk about how to use the course in our Your Study Plan course, I'm not sure if you've gone through that course, because I think you already had the strategy as to how you want
Yeah.
to prepare, right? So, what we tell students is that you go through the entire course and then get your abilities to about 75, 80%, right, in all the sections. And then utilize Scholaranium to do fine tuning. Now, that's what you did because you started off at that, except for SC. That's what you did. And you did that very smartly. I mean, SC was an obvious issue. So you went through the course, but then you utilized Scholaranium to find out your weak areas. And you pinpointed, you went through, I think, specific files like units, digit files and whatnot. So, yeah, so that's really amazing. And that's an iterative process. And, that's something which people, I feel so bad when I see stories wherein, people are saying, I've practiced so many questions. I keep telling them time and again, it's not practice that matters. It's focused practice. And you are a living example of that. In 20 days, you've prepared and, you've done it so well. You've managed your preparation so well. I'm really amazed at that. And, congratulations for that. It's one thing to get the score. It's another thing, the journey. I mean, the journey is so rewarding. And I think this experience itself shows how methodical you are in your thought process, and that's a very important skill at any workplace. You're identifying the problem, breaking down the issue, identifying what is it that you need to solve first, and then attacking that, and then coming back and looking at the basically following an iterative thing. So very good. All right, so what's next?
Yeah, so with this score actually does open up quite a few options for me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
I am looking into the deferred programs.
mm-hmm,
So ISB obviously, then Yale, SOM, Silver Scholars,
mm-hmm.
and HBS obviously. That was how it all started.
Oh yes, yeah, I thought
That's
you
like
lead with that.
so
The 2+2.
that is the one which I'm going to be putting a lot of thought into, and that's the one I'm going to be thinking night and day about before pressing that send button.
Mm-hmm,
So yeah, obviously that. So these are the three programs which I have listed out myself.
mm-hmm.
There are a few more, but I think these are three ones which I'm primarily focusing on.
Okay.
MIT and Stanford, from what I've heard, do also offer deferred programs.
Yeah.
So I am interested in them,
Mm-hmm,
but at the first priority, actually, for me, frankly, first priority is HPS and Yale,
mm-hmm.
and then I have ISB, and then if I think I can probably, if I am confident about my application, I might look into MIT or Stanford.
Okay. All
Otherwise,
right.
I might be willing to just leave those out.
Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stop the recording right now, and then we'll just chat a little bit. And
Sure.
yeah,